Welcome. Welcome to the 23rd in a series of shows focused on Brookline as an age-friendly community. In 2012, the World Health Organization designated Brookline as its first age-friendly community in New England. This was a result of a lot of work by Brookline residents, the Select Board, town departments, and a volunteer organization, Brookline Can, providing leadership. Our guests today are Ann Myers and Paul Saina, co-chairs of the Economic Development Advisory Board, or EDAB. Ann works on the board at improving tax revenue by increasing vitality to commercial areas. Paul works with current and planned development projects. What are these things? We'll get into them later. Ann spent over 30 years in public and nonprofit sector. She was the Deputy Director for Development for the Massachusetts Port Authority and the President of Downtown Crossing Association in Boston. Since she's retired, she's been working as a pro bono management consultant for nonprofits with SOAR Management Consulting Group. She has a BA from Skidmore and an MBA from Boston University. Paul was a senior executive at a national real estate investment company and a major commercial bank. He was the founding board chair for Metropolitan Waterworks Museum, which I like. And he's was a governor-appointed commissioner of the Massachusetts Commission for the Blind. He has a BA from Trinity College and an MBA in finance from the University of Rochester. I'd like to start off trying to understand a bit about our economic resources. So I'd like to say welcome, Ann, and welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Matt.
So I'd like a bit of background. When you talk about commercial area, you talk about projects, development projects, what does that do for Brookline as far as money, as far as life? What is that?
That's a great question. I'll start with the money end of your question. Brookline has about $26 billion of assessed value of real estate, most of which is taxable. And of that, 10% is commercial properties. That 10% has been on the increase over the last decade, and it's equivalent to, as an example, Newton's tax base. Now, one distinguishing factor here in Brookline is that commercial properties have a higher tax rate. It's approximately 64% greater than the residential tax rate. Also, some commercial properties, like hotels, generate local option taxes. So to put all of that in context, on the development side of economic development, we're looking to create new tax growth, which is tax growth over and above the Proposition 2.5 levy. And the importance of new tax growth, and especially commercial tax growth to the town, is that it helps make the town more affordable. The town budgets on the margin, and by that I mean we look at how much additional revenue we have annually and what we're going to spend that on. And new tax growth is about $2.7 million a year in and year out. And that might seem like a small amount in relation to a $300 million budget, but it's a huge percentage of the annual increase in revenues, which is only about $16 million. And again, the commercial component pays a higher tax, and last but not least, tends to have a much lesser demand on town services,
Right.
such as schools, libraries, and parks. So
Right.
it's very positive to the net fiscal bottom line of the town.
Does marijuana taxes included in that?
No.
No,
Okay,
not yet.
sorry.
Marijuana is a new
We'll
tax.
keep that subject separate. I just,
Okay.
I just suddenly it dawned on me, is that something that swings that? And it doesn't, so that's great. So we can concentrate on what we're on.
Great.
So, okay, so the question of the Newton, can I just
Sure.
that question? When you say that, why is that? Why are we so much larger than, why are the commercial
We're not
taxes?
larger than Newton, we're equivalent to Newton. So Newton has about 10%
Right.
of their overall real estate assessment also in the commercial sector.
Okay,
But some people think that Newton must have a lot more than Brookline because Newton does enjoy very deep parcels along Route 9 that have allowed for development
right.
there that is much more difficult to achieve in Brookline.
now we have Route 9 too now. It's called, what is it? It's where, by Washington Street and
Gateway East,
Gateway East.
yes.
Is that going to help a lot?
The children's side.
There's a lot going on in
What site is
Brookline
that?
Village.
Yeah.
Ann, did you want to talk about it?
Yeah.
So Children's Place at Brookline Place has been an economic development project going back 15 years. That gives you a sense of the gestation period for one of these large commercial
Yeah,
developments. Any large commercial development that we've been involved with has had to go to town meeting to get new zoning to permit
Right.
larger buildings and typically less parking than what Brookline's zoning has historically required. So in order to achieve financial feasibility, you need to create a new zoning envelope. And as it relates to Children's at Brookline Place, they're next year going to be opening a new 185,000 square foot clinical medical office building, ambulatory care, an 8-story building. They're also expanding the existing One Brookline Place. They've already completed a large, new, above-grade parking garage.
It seems fast to me, I have to tell you, but you're right, it's years, I'm sure it's
The
years. of
construction
development.
hasn't been that long, but getting to the groundbreaking certainly has been.
Yeah.
And we're very much bullish about that, not just from new tax growth,
Right.
which is more than $2 million a year, but more pedestrian traffic
Right.
in the Brookline Village commercial area, which is our second largest commercial area, only to Coolidge Corner.
So Ann, how, commercial traffic, that's a commercial area, right? Just like
Brookline
Coolidge
Village,
Corner.
yes.
Yeah, so how do you improve, I constantly think of Brookline Village as a place where there's not a lot of pedestrian traffic. There seems to be, there's no supermarket there, right? And there's no, what you sort of expect, and yet there's a train station. And what's happening in Brookline Village is,
Well, the Stop and Shop is pretty much in Brookline Village. I mean, the area between, I mean, it's as close to Brookline Village as it is to Coolidge Corner, almost. But aside from the supermarket, this new development that Paul just described is going to have a lot of people working in it every
Right,
day. They're going to
right,
want to
right,
go out and do errands. They're going to want to have lunch. We had a group of
it already has that feel to it, by the
Yes.
way. My sense is we suddenly have an area in Brookline Village that's alive. It's a new area and a new feel to
Well,
it.
it was that way, and then a lot of the uses left before this new development. And we had some brokers come to one of our EDAB meetings a couple of months ago, just talking about the market in general.
Right.
And they're seeing a lot of people express new interest in Brookline Village because of the expectation that a lot more people are going to be working there.
Yeah, there's going to be a hotel there too, right?
There will be a hotel on the other side of the Children's Hospital development, yeah.
Yeah, I can sense it. I mean, you
Yeah.
can. And as I say, it feels fast to me because nothing was happening for a long time. But now it's really changing pretty rapidly. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
Keep changing.
So, what is the other boards? Just to before we get further into the various areas in Brookline, I want to understand the background.
Sure.
So there's a housing advisory board.
Yes.
And there's a planning board.
Right.
And there's EDAB.
Yes.
Right. Can someone tell me something about these boards?
I'd be happy to.
Okay,
All
great.
three boards are appointed by, its members are appointed by the Select Board. The Planning Board is a very active board. It consists of real estate professionals, primarily those in the various design fields.
Right.
And they're responsible for the town's comprehensive plan.
Okay.
And so they're technically responsible for a long-term planning division. They spend a lot of time processing various requests for zoning relief. So when someone
see.
wants to expand their home
Right.
or put an addition on
Like every other
a
house.
mixed-use building, exactly, they need to stop almost always at the planning board en route to the zoning board of appeals, and the planning board is advisory to the ZBA. For major projects,
Right.
the planning board takes an even more active role and will appoint a design advisory team
Okay.
to really vet with the architects of the developer the proposed project, and typically to refine it, and to do so in a way that is based upon neighborhood feedback to make it as
Got it.
contextual as possible. The Housing Advisory Board, like EDAB, is an advisory board to the Select Board, and their focus is affordable housing. And they have a housing trust fund that they're responsible for making recommendations to the Select Board as to how to spend those funds. And EDAB works very closely with the HAB and the Planning Board. And in fact, going forward, we are looking for development opportunities along our commercial corridors, and those opportunities will likely be mixed-use opportunities, meaning not just one use. And
Right.
those uses would include residential and
Okay.
various commercial uses.
Great. So, speaking about those uses, small businesses, I've noticed it's the one other committee that I'm fine on committees. There's a new committee called the Small Business Committee.
Yes.
I don't want to get into it. We can bring them on separately when they're alive and going well. But what is the purpose of that?
They're alive. I'm on it. I'm a member of that committee.
Okay.
We met for the fourth or fifth time. I've lost track this morning, actually.
Excellent.
And it is, it was created by the Select Board. We're an
Right.
advisory committee to the Select Board. The charge is to bring ideas to the Select Board that will make it easier for small businesses to locate in Brookline, maybe lower some barriers to doing that, making it, trying to figure out how, one of the issues that they've been working on is the town doesn't really have great data about how many small businesses there are. We can track
Right.
the retail, but there are a lot of people with small businesses in their homes, for example, graphic design businesses, medical professionals, all kinds of things. And the town doesn't necessarily know that they're doing that.
Sure.
Trying to figure out how to get better data on that, a whole variety of, we're just now starting to figure out what the tasks are.
And as you look at things like small businesses, Brookline Can, for instance, has an age-friendly business activity
Yeah.
in which they identify age-friendly businesses. The Age-Friendly Cities Committee sort of tries to provide input to both the Select Board and the various boards on age-friendliness. Does that come into account? Is that something that's you're aware of? The
I'm
age-friendly
aware of
aspect?
it. I'm probably the oldest person by a fair amount on this group.
And not at the table.
Oh, we can find out later. But it hasn't. That's actually a very good point, and I'll make
Yeah.
sure to bring it up.
I want to make sure I got that in.
Okay.
It's what we're here for, and it's something that really, really concerns us. But so does everything else, like the growth of the town. And but that can only come with increased revenue, and we'd just like to make sure that age friendliness is taken into account
Yes.
in everything that's done.
Absolutely.
So to
yeah.
that point, more generally, there's a lot of evidence that one of the values that people really put high on their list as why they're attracted to Brookline is our commercial areas.
Right.
And the opportunity to make those areas more vibrant with successful small businesses is attractive to people of all ages, but I would like to think in particular seniors,
Absolutely.
many of whom want to not just frequent shops in our commercial area, but live, if not in the commercial area, very nearby, so that we're very
Absolutely.
focused on the public realm and in particular pedestrian access to our commercial areas.
So Ann, the question of zoning, upzoning, what does that mean? Is that a
That means denser zoning, allowing for larger buildings.
so? It sounds like density is good.
Density, I think that density is good. There are
I do
a lot
too,
of opinions about it. Some people don't. But density in an area like Coolidge Corner, which is, I mean, people come from all over the world to look at Coolidge Corner.
Right.
It's a transit line. There's a bus line. I live right in Coolidge Corner now, and I can walk everywhere. And there are a lot of areas of Coolidge Corner that could be more densely developed. There are a number of one-story buildings in Coolidge Corner that could have office or residential above them, for example. And that we'd have to upzone and create mixed-use development, allow for mixed-use zoning to
So
do that.
speaking of mixed-use zoning and Coolidge Corner, there's an area called Waldo Durgan Garage. There's a garage there. 15 years ago, maybe, or when I moved here, maybe 20 years ago, more, 20 years ago. So somewhere in there, I remember something was going to happen with Waldo and Durgan back then. I saw some pictures online the other day preparing for this, and I got really excited. What is happening at Waldo Durgan? And how does that have to do with development?
Ann and I know quite a bit about Waldo Durgan. This is EDAB and Economic Development's most recent success in terms of town meeting almost unanimously approving and upzoning. That particular
Excellent.
project is about to go into the regulatory phase, meaning the developer will be filing with the town, and that will kick off likely at least a year-long process that will hopefully lead toward their getting their special permits. Embedded in that process will be a very significant design review to further vet the Cambridge 7 concept plan. But that particular project is a mixed-use project. It went through 2 intensive studies over the last decade. The upzoning there will permit a mixed-use project that will include a very high-end hotel of
Okay.
at least 200 keys and 143 residential units. There'll also be some
that
shared
rental or,
workspace. That'll be rental.
Okay.
There'll be some shared workspace, and at the insistence of the committee, there will be at least one ground-level retail space along Pleasant Street, which is not a great retail area,
Right.
but that was very important to the neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
That particular project will generate in excess of $3 million of new tax growth. There's a lot
From
of...
an empty garage to a,
Yeah.
got it.
And there's a lot of, pedestrian-friendly features that were incorporated into that,
Right.
including a likely connection through the site to Harvard Street via
Booksmith.
the Booksmith.
Yeah.
Yes. I lived for about 10 years down in the Washington area, and there's something called Kramer Books and afterwards.
Yeah.
And you go through the bookstore, and then there's a cafe in the back, and then there's a connection to the other street, and things like that. And this, I saw that picture online. I said, yes.
That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting, actually.
Yeah.
I do want to go back to a point that Ann made about upzoning. So the zoning there is considerably more than what had been allowed. I just want to mention that the most bulk of a building that's allowed under present zoning is a building that would be twice the size of the site upon which it's constructed. And so if you were to develop a building on half of a site, it would be 4 stories. If you were to develop a building on 2/3 of a site, it'd be 3 stories and still fit within this 2.0 floor area ratio, or FAR.
Right.
So that explains, I think, why we have so many 1- and 2-story buildings in our commercial areas.
Right.
There's no economic incentive for a property owner with income-producing space to tear that space down and start over if all that can be constructed is a building slightly larger than what is there.
Right.
And so one of our biggest challenges around economic development is that our zoning for commercial properties is inadequate from a financial feasibility point of view. In other words, we don't have any organic growth. The growth we have is after these very intensive processes that we've been involved with at Brookline Place or Waldo Durgan. We're hoping to get ahead of the developers and
Right.
launch more thoughtful, proactive studies of larger areas where we change the FAR to make it possible for redevelopment. The last thing I want to say is one of the big dilemmas we have is that residential in Brookline predominates. It's 90% of everything that's
Right.
built, and it's almost always the highest and best use from a developer profit point of view. But as I mentioned, it's also a very low tax-paying use.
Right.
And unless it's housing for seniors or millenniums, it comes with typically considerable impacts to the town, fiscal impacts.
I'm excited. I realize it can be controversial and there are questions on both sides, but I happen to be excited. I mean,
Good.
that's something.
Hopefully there are a lot of people like
Now, getting people into the commercial areas, being able to shop, keeping these small businesses going as well, keeping all of this going. What does that entail? What does that mean?
Well, it means that we need to, I mean, one of the reasons that we want to see more development in the commercial areas is to get more foot traffic. That's
Right.
what drives the business. The perception among
Benches, clean sidewalks,
clean sidewalks.
lighting, street lighting.
Exactly.
And the paths to and from the commercial areas. This is all our age-friendly. I
Right,
told
and
you,
a
I
lot
get
of
it in
that,
again.
a lot of that has been done fairly recently by the town.
And we need more. Yeah,
And
this-
we certainly need more.
benches was great that
Yeah.
some benches have come in and that helps.
You should-
Street lighting is really a place we need to look at.
In Coolidge Corner?
You have to get to Coolidge Corner. You have to walk
Okay.
5 blocks. You have to
Yeah.
walk down Winchester. You have to walk from Griggs Park. You have to go. Those aren't very far, and you go shopping in Coolidge Corner. But to get there, those paths are dark. Very often they're street questions. I mean, it's not just the location.
It's getting there.
Getting
I
there.
understand.
And
That's
most people get
interesting
there by foot.
because
or
I-
bike, or,
I lived farther down Harvard Street for 40 years and walked to Coolidge Corner almost every day. And I didn't, on Harvard Street, that isn't a problem at night.
not a problem, right.
But I'm sure you're right about the other areas. So
That's right.
it's good to know.
That's really good. And it's also, and as I say, bicycles, people come on bicycles, and walking is the key. I mean, it's the ideal walking town. You can walk every place,
Yeah.
and there's tons of things to see. But to go shopping, depending on where you're coming from, you want to be able to get there in the middle of the winter, in the middle of the night. The stores are open, right?
Yeah.
So you just want to get there and shop. Do what you
And the
want.
stores, yeah, and the stores want the people at night. I had dinner last night with some friends who moved just about a year ago from a large house in south of Route 9 in Newton, in that
Right.
area, to Coolidge Corner. And they were talking about how much they love it and how friendly everybody is in all the stores that they go to and how they can go out every day and do errands right there. And it really,
That's it.
it was wonderful to hear.
Yeah, that's no question about it. So the other question I had was the types of stores. So we have banks. We have banks. And then we have restaurants, which I really like, of all different types. We have a Booksmith, which everybody loves. We have HealthWorks. You know, we have I'm not advertising any of these, but there's lots of places, lots of different types of stores. Is there any mix, or is there anything that's more important than others, or what
Well,
is
in
it?
terms of what attracts people, why
Yes,
people
what
come to
attracts
Village
people.
Corner, the
Right.
theater,
Right.
Eureka,
Of course.
Party Favors, the Booksmith. I think maybe the largest, and that's just based on anecdotal evidence. I don't know that we have
that's-
counts.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And
You
there's
listed
some
a
other
bunch of
small
age-friendly-
stores
you
as
listed a
well.
bunch
I
of
think
age-friendly
Wild Goose
stores, too.
Chase and Fire Opal. I
Yeah.
mean, some of the specialty stores.
Right.
But the theater is a huge asset for Coolidge Corner.
Right. No question.
Huge asset.
Absolutely no question.
And I was just going to say, I actually pulled this morning. Meredith Mooney in the Economic Development Office every year does a vacancy report to see how the vacancies are, whether they're up
that's
or down.
interesting.
And last year she compared the number of banks, cell phone stores, and nail and hair salons in 2018 to 2008. And in 2008 there were 9 banks, and to 2018 there were 10. And everybody thinks that they're like double the number of banks than
I
there
mean,
used to
nicer
be.
actually. The banks that are being that have opened instead of either replacing others or others are more age friendly as a start. I've been in the last couple that opened, and they're quite a difference in how they. So that's conscious, and every one of the
And there's-
stores you mentioned are.
Yeah, there are 3 cell phone stores then and 3 cell phone stores now. So some of the things that people are complaining about,
Right.
it's a myth.
And
but
today, the cell
banks-
phone store is a service store.
Exactly.
I mean, that's a.
The issue with banks, the issues that the merchants have with banks is that they close at 5 o'clock, and there's not as much. There's no reason for people to go in and. I mean, I guess they use the ATMs, but it doesn't generate any street traffic, pedestrian traffic
Right.
after 5 o'clock,
Right.
and that's one of the issues with the mix. This isn't a mall. None of our commercial areas are. They're
course
all
not.
owned by lots of different people, and unless all those people get together and decide what an ideal product mix is going to be, that's a very tough one to deal with.
That's a very important point that Ann mentioned, the fragmented ownership. It makes it obviously difficult to look at even a large segment of the commercial area as a whole.
Yeah, right.
It's also challenging when it comes to development because a lot of these owners go back many family generations. They have a very low tax basis. They're very interested in just doing what they've always done.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's a structural issue for us.
right. Well, I want you to keep working on it because I'm very happy with the way things have been progressing lately as far as things are changing, which change is good. At the same time, there's some sense to me that there's some planning coming in and that there is planning behind it. As I said, things like the Durgan, things like the various things going up in Coolidge Corner area, obviously, but all around town. So this is exciting. I think it's really important for people to watch what you're doing and for you to communicate what you do, but I think continue communicating both this way and other ways, because I think everybody likes to be, this is Brookline, everybody likes to be involved in,
Exactly.
in what's happening and has something to say about it of all sides. So
A timely
I wanna-
update, Matt,
yeah.
is that just last week, town meeting did almost unanimously vote to eliminate parking minimums for most commercial uses in what we refer to as our transit parking overlay district, which is basically North Brookline. It's anywhere within 0.5 miles of a green line.
Yeah, that's
stop.
that's an excellent.
And that will make it more easy, especially for stores that are going through a change in use, to go through the town hall process without having to get a special permit. The irony is that 68% of the storefronts in Brookline have no parking.
Right.
But if you have a retail space that wants to become a restaurant space, you've got to jump through hoops in order to open your restaurant, even though you know that there'll never be parking that you can make available to your patrons. So we're very excited about the long-term potential that that will have to reduce vacancies and, along with other zoning changes, to potentially create opportunities
That's a
for
great
new
place.
development.
That's a great place for us to stop, because that's good news.
Good.
So I want to thank everybody for watching, and I want to thank Ann and Paul especially for attending and for subjecting yourself to my my questions. And the show will be rebroadcast over the next few weeks at various times, and of course is available on the Brookline Can website and on the Brookline Can Twitter and Facebook accounts, and any other way you can get a hold of it on YouTube or otherwise. Thanks for watching.
Time flies when you're having fun.